I think Blake Middleton he's worse than Pindar. Cheers from a truly gorgeous day in the land of 10,000 lakes up in Minnesota, where they've just named their governor as the vice president nominee.
Yes.
For the Democrat Party. Chris Exley in Salem, Mass. Blake, it's up there. He says it's sunny, 75, and lower dew points. Good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show in our 8th year and show number 729. Welcome. Yeah, it's going to get rainy in Connecticut, Rick Bannerow saying, as that hurricane, what's left of it's going to proceed up through the country and up into the Northeast.
Yes.
David James asking, how does one keep track of so many lakes up in Minnesota? A beautiful part of the world. We have a lot of lakes in Michigan, too, and in Illinois, and in Wisconsin from the retreat of the glaciers 10,000 plus years ago.
Yes.
Glacial moraine lakes where the glaciers retreating and they dropped off chunks of ice that then depressed the ground and melted and made a lake. Glacial moraine lakes. Welcome everybody to show number 729 for Tuesday, the 6th of August, 2024. It's going to be all about Olympics. It's going to be good fun as people are checking in from around the globe, including Graham Sweeney in Yell, Shetland, Scotland. Philip Laffin saying good afternoon, and beyond, as we welcome you back here to Beach Street Yacht Club, Studio B. Julia, I can push the TBJ button, and there it freezes my picture for a minute. There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
We are here in Studio B, and my co-host, I'm alongside Julia Vedikin. She has a new camera. I don't know if you can tell.
I didn't know until you told me.
Can you tell? New camera.
It's very clear.
And your camera's now over there at the camera 2 position, and we think we've improved once again our situation here. Andrew McIrvin checking in from a rather warm London. Philip Laffin, of course, is in Florida, Davis Island, where they've just had that hurricane blow through there. What, did it ever get to Cat 1? I can't remember what it did. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's going to be about the Olympics, and John Emmett will be joining us when he gets through with his doctor's appointment. He's going to rush home. And you'll probably hear some ping, ping, ping here when he signs in over here on Computer 3, Mac 3, and we'll get him into the show. He is our guest today, again, as Joe Holtzman checks in from Estes Park up in Colorado, where he's got 2 fires. How's that going, Joe? I hope those fires are still... Well, you're on here, so you haven't evacuated. I hope you're okay. Obviously, you are, at least for the moment. John Emmett will be joining us again live from Weymouth. A lot of you sent notes afterwards, after the show last Friday, how nice it was to have John on as Julia, as an Olympic expert.
Oh, no question about it. It was really good.
He was really good indeed. So, Julia, what are we celebrating today? There's a clue behind that lower third. That a better clue?
Oh, well, okay.
That is Marit Boumeester from the Netherlands, Olympic sailing's female GOAT. I'm putting that in your PIP over your shoulder because she has, assuming she wins the gold, which it's all but guaranteed. She's all but clinched it. She has to start and finish in the medal race, which got postponed from today to tomorrow. And if she does that, she is going to become the most decorated female Olympian of all time. The most decorated male Olympian of all time being Sir Ben Ainsley. And she is
in sailing.
In sailing, of course, in sailing. So bravo Zulu to her. We're going to talk about her. John knows her well when he gets on. And it's a special day in the sport, as yesterday, actually, on the 5th, is when she clinched this title of the GOAT, the greatest of all time, or new queen. NED, not DEN. What did I say, Rob Weiland? Is my lower third Crutonic? She is, of course, from the Netherlands, not Denmark. Thank you for fixing that if I had it wrong. One of the features of this Olympics has been to admire the scenery. If the on-the-water action becomes tedious or during the lengthy delays, it's the same for the host city, Paris, and the helicopter shots of some of the world's most notable landmarks. They are something else. This is Richard Gladwell writing in his epistle from yesterday on sail-world.com. But August 5th, yesterday, won't be remembered for checking the accuracy of the tourist brochures. It will enter into the sailing history books as the day veteran Dutch, NED, not DEN, Dutch sailor Marit Boumeester became the greatest of all time in women's Olympic sailing. Her second gold medal adds to her 2 silver, slipping her past Britain's Hannah Mills, who won gold medals in Rio and Tokyo and silver in London. Both won their first Olympic medals in Weymouth 2012, and Boumeester continued for one more Olympiad to win her second gold and 4th Olympic medal. So bravo Zulu to her. It really is an impressive day. Richard went on to write a little bit more in a long article from which I am excerpting on sail-world.com. A long talk with Richard, actually, last night, I guess it was. But August 5th won't be remembered for checking the accuracy. I've already read that.
Yes,
we don't need to read that again. So bravo Zulu to her and to Richard, by the way. Richard, down in New Zealand, he's not at the Olympics. He, Julia, is staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning, New Zealand time. I was texting with him this morning.
At 4 or 5.
Well, at 4 or 5 his time, which is, plus 5 to us. So it's 10 or so in the morning.
Yeah.
9 or 10 our time. And, Richard's, he's a workaholic and he's a mensch and he's just terrific. Yes. And his writing, as usual, has been second to none. So bravo Zulu to him, but also especially to the GOAT, the greatest female sailor, Olympic sailor of all time, Marit Boumeester. Bravo Zulu. We're going to talk quite a bit more about her when we get John Emmett on here. I'm just watching to see if John's come on.
Not yet. I like Rick Bannero's comment.
Read it, please.
In sailing, wouldn't she be a boat?
A boat.
Not a goat.
Best of all time?
Best of all time.
Maybe a boat. It really isn't a comparison since swimming and gymnastics and so forth offer multiple medals per quad. The proper comparison is Elfstrom. Yeah, as you're going back and forth, that's a very good point from the David James, the Stanfordite, David James across the bridge over in Sausalito, another one of these smart people. Graham Sweeney, greatest of all time. It was inevitable. She is already a sailing legend, as Ken Saban checks in the flatlands of Ohio, watching Lake Erie kicking off a heck of a weather forecast. Yeah, I guess they're going to get a bit of that too. I'm seeing somebody said, was it Blake, said that storm did go in at, what was it called? Debbie? Mm-hmm. Debbie does Florida. Debbie does Clearwater. Okay, that's a reference to an old porn movie from the 60s or I guess the 70s. But you would know about that, Julie. You can wave your finger at me. And we will talk some more about her, not Debbie. About Marit.
There are lots of lovely Debbies in the world.
Yeah, there are. I'm a little punchy today. But bravo, Zulu. Let's do some more non-sailing stuff before we get in with John, who's going to come on. As I said, he's at a doctor's appointment. He's rushing home. He's got his computer all set up, and we hope to have him on about 1:15 in about 6 minutes from now. Bravo, Zulu, to France and the United States. I thought since this is another water sport and it's not getting much attention because they're half a world away in Tahiti on the Tahitian beach of, how do you pronounce that? Teahupo'o. revealed the surfing champions of the Paris Olympic Games. Frenchman Kali Vast and American Caroline Marks became the gold medalists on Monday, the 5th of August, in a competition that was marked, you think, down there even, by adverse weather conditions until the final day.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
On TV?
Yep.
Well, I guess they had great surfing conditions finally on the last day. So here is the gentleman from France who won, and he grew up, no surprise, in Tahiti. His name, Kaui Vast.
Kauai.
And he is the surfing gold medalist, and he won that medal in Tahiti today. It's, of course, tomorrow down there now, but it was apparently on the 6th. Bravo Zulu to him. The first to climb onto the top of the podium was Vast, who defeated Australian Jack Robinson in the final to give France its first title in this discipline. Vast, born in Tahiti, finished his performance with 17.67 points after scoring 9.5 on his best wave in his first attempt.
Wow.
This allowed him to establish himself as the clear winner over his rival, who took the silver medal with 7.83 points. Then came this female from the U.S., Caroline Marks. She's from Florida originally. I read a bit about her this morning, and she is very bright and very accomplished and a hell of a good surfer as well. No surprise. And in the women's category, it was American Marks who took the gold after defeating Brazilian Tatiana Weston Webb in the final. Marks completed her performance with 10.50 points, achieving a best wave score of 7.5 on her second attempt. The victory over her rival was quite narrow, as Weston Webb scored 10.33 points. David James asking, what constitutes adverse weather in Tahiti? I believe I ought to do some on-site due diligence. Would you please, David? On your own nickel, please.
Waves and wind.
Waves and wind in Tahiti. Bravo Zulu to Ms. Marks and to all of the surfers who apparently finally had some decent waves here in just today, in the last day. Bravo Nagat Zulu. This is that continuation of that story, which goes from bad to worse. This is the boxer who the Boxing Federation said was XY, and who the IOC said, well, we don't test athletes anymore, and we take their word for what they say they are, which in this case was female. As you know, we had this controversy over the weekend. We talked about it on Friday's show. It has only ramped up since then. One of you sent this slide for Friday's show. The new Olympic sport, men beating up women. A lot of people came to her on the left defense, the Algerian, who they said she's born a female, always raised a female, always been a female, has female on her passport, Julia.
Aha.
Which clearly makes her a female if you have female on your passport, right?
No question.
And this continuing controversy, that first slide from Bill Cook last Friday, well, now it's because there's another athlete who is also in the same, well, we won't say boat, but in the same ring. And no less than Sebastian Coe, who's the president of the IAAF, the track and field, or some of you would call the Athletics International Federation. He today has hit out at the IOC for not having a policy to deal with the current controversy over gender eligibility in Olympic boxing. It's simple, he said, have a policy. And that's Sebastian Coe, the president of the IAAF. And here's some more on that, courtesy of Inside the Games website. As president of the IAAF, Coe stressed the importance of having a clear policy on the issue. You will never please everyone, but you have to have a clear position. Without it, you end up in situations like this. Last year, is it Imane Khalif of Algeria and Lin Yuting of Chinese Taipei? I don't know why they don't call it Taiwan like everybody else, but apparently to keep the Chinese happy. Right. Chinese Taipei were excluded, those two were, from the World Amateur Championships for failing to meet the IBF, the eligibility criteria of the International Boxing Federation, and also the WBO, the World Boxing Organization. Despite this, both athletes are guaranteed Olympic medals as of today because they've gotten through now to the finals in their respective weights. They're not fighting each other. They are in different weight categories, weight groups. Khalif, 25, will face Thailand's John James Suwanafeng
Oh, good.
in the 66 kg semifinals at Roland Garros on Tuesday, while Yu Ting, who's 28, will take on Turkey's Ezra Yildiz Karaman in the 57 kilogram category on Wednesday. So I don't know what's going on, but how this can be, they've got to have some kind of testing. They've got to have some criteria. Apparently they are XY chromosomes both. At least that's what the Boxing Federation's testing. But everybody, we don't want to say what our testing was. We don't want to go against the IOC. We might get kicked out of the Olympics. That is boxing. So Clark Chapin says, but isn't it the responsibility of the WBO? Well, it's actually the International Boxing Federation to make the policy and enforce it. The problem is, Clark, and that's a very good question and point, the problem is that IBF, the International Boxing Federation, was decertified by the IOC, Julia. And the IOC took over the control and management of boxing. They are the only sport, to my knowledge, there may be one or two others that are in the same, but there was controversy over that federation. There was allegations that the Russian president was a crook, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
The IOC said to hell with it, and lots of problems with drug testing and so on. So the IOC has taken over the sport of boxing, and they are managing it, but they failed to give a clear policy about gender ID, apparently. Ed Worley says, it's sad the Olympics has been dragged into this mess and not using common sense and sucking up to politicians. Totally agree, Ed. And why don't we just stop having women hitting each other, which is another issue. Well, if the women want to box, go for it. Julie Ahrens, who had some pretty strong views on Friday, says, notification has nothing to do with biology. If you are biologically a man, you are a man. If you are biologically a woman, you are a woman. It is not a matter of how you identify. It is strictly a matter of biology. And, I understand there's issues with testosterone and how much you're taking and how much you can take, and people's female and male bodies give off, secrete more testosterone. Some do than others. But if you are an XY chromosome, which is apparently what the deal is here, apparently, I haven't seen that on a piece of paper, but that's what everybody says. If they're XY chromosome, they're a male, and they have male advantages, it seems to me, Julie. What do you think? You're the female here.
I know. I've always thought it was, crazy, and taking undue advantage of.
Well, I mean, we're back to East Berlin. We're back to the East Germany, rather, and some of the other Soviet states back in the Cold War days when they had virtually men. They were taking so many drugs and so on.
Right.
I mean, just ask Lance Armstrong. They stripped him of all his medals because he had too much testosterone.
Yeah.
So there are advantages to taking testosterone in physical, especially in development while you're pubing.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to get into this. Gordon Smith's got probably a contrary opinion. He's following the opinion of a discredited, non-credited organization is not a wise strategy. The IOC perspective is the only one currently worth following, however flawed. However, in this case, both women have been competing for some considerable time with only the discredited organization being unhappy when they beat their favorite opponents. Go figure. Yeah, I'm not sure that's 100% true, but you're right, Gordon, that the Italian lady who was beaten in every sense of that word by the Algerian afterwards said, I don't want to criticize the IOC. I don't want to criticize my opponent. Fog machine, Bulgarians, cute as concrete, strong like tractor. As I hear John Emmett signing on in the background. Let's see if we can get John. There he is. Look at that. Julia?
I haven't seen him. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Hello, John Emmett.
I'm going to do a little adjustment. John, we'll get to you in a moment. Can you count to 5 for me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, that's a good start. We've got audio. And I'll get to you in a moment here without all that white around you, as we are just talking about this gender ID stuff. Somebody somebody would say, Ted Ryman said, did they have a non-boxing CEO? Okay, enough of that. Although I do have one more for you, Julia.
Okay.
I couldn't help myself. This courtesy of Babylon B. The referee warns Olympic women's boxing finalists are not to punch each other in in the testicles.
Oh,
there
yes.
the word is. Jody Shields' favorite word. I had to put that in courtesy of the Babylon Bee. And Jody, if you're watching.
He is, because he's asked, he signed in.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw him sign in. Good, Julia. And that's good. John can count, so he's not been knocked unconscious. Gordon Smith always he always is full of good comments, and we appreciate them. In fact, most of our foes are.
What?
Wah. And Alan Long, wow, forget my weather report. Appears we're getting tornado warnings now. The lake will stop it. I hope that's true. I guess things are crazy up there on Lake Erie. That's where Alan Long is in Cleveland. So, Julie Aarons, you keep your head down and stay safe. And likewise to, probably over on the western end of Lake Erie is also, it sounds like it's a wild time up there. Okay, stay safe, everybody. Ken Saban included. Not to punch each other in the testicles.
Oh.
I was going to dig one of my hockey cups out of the hockey bag, but my hockey bag's in San Diego, and I was going to put it on and then stand up right about now.
Oh, come on.
Just as a sight gag, Julia. Come on. Then
Too much info.
You could shake your finger at that. Debbie does the non-sailing CEO. That's got to go. Oh, you all. Well, that's Negat Bravo Zulu. We're not amused by that. Nobody is, I'm sure, and I hope they get it sorted out. I agree completely with Sebastian Coe, as I'm sure all of you do. Let's have a clear policy for one way or another for all sports. I mean, it could be a problem in other sports, including our beloved sports. Speaking of beloved, the Fozy who come on here and support us each month, giving us a few bucks a month. We appreciate very much your support. Those of you who also just come on regularly to watch and like, follow, and share. But if you want to give us a few bucks a month, go to patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Julia?
Very much appreciated.
And it keeps us, I always take to this shot here, our new camera
2. It looks good.
It's 1080p 30, and I can stream now at 4K. For you nerds like John Emmett, we can stream at 4K now.
The problem is, can anybody see us in 4K?
That's the problem. And then it'll start causing the spinning, buffering ball. We'll get to John Emmett in a sec. We're going to play some videos, but we want to just give you the same slides that we've given to you for the last couple shows, courtesy of Gilles Martin Raget and Robert Deves, to show you what the venue there looks like as they're winding down. They're, not quite halfway through their second week, but nearly so. As the venue in Marseille is a bit windy, there it was windy, but it's a bit dusty and dry on shore. The weather is hot and humid, and it is, some people calling it Desert Storm 2. Tough venue, 4 race courses, but they have been wind challenged. They had another terrible day today. John's going to update us on all that. He's following it very closely. And they are going to be challenged about getting these races in tomorrow, including some medal races, which have been postponed more than one day. There are the courses off the Corniche and off Marseille. There's one of the fantastic looking race committee boats, of which there are at least 4, probably a backup as well, on those respective 4 Olympic circles. Robert Deves, thank you for that shot. And the television coverage has been, if you can see it, but we're seeing it here in the States on the streaming service of NBC streaming service called Peacock. And when they cover racing, it's good. Sadly, Gary Jobson, as we've said a number of times, is all alone in a sound booth in Connecticut watching the screens like everybody else, which leads him sadly to also from time to time say, oh, that boat's tacking, oh, that boat's jibing, the stuff that Andy Rose and I and Matt Whitfield try very hard not to do, which is to just tell you what you can see with your own eyes.
Right.
But what Gary does do, I think, Julie, in a very, very satisfactory and more than good way, is he's explaining our beloved sport to the uninitiated. And I'm glad he's doing that, and he's doing it without dumbing it down too much for the rest of us. And the OBS, the other good thing about it is they're using the Stan Honey / Sail GP graphics, and it is superb. It is just really, really good. Okay, speaking of the venue, Alistair Murray has been there, and he's keeping me posted, as are a number of other Fozy, and he submitted a couple of videos that we're going to play now in Alistair's Aussie. Awesome Aussie anecdote. And this first video is just a minute long, and it's from the venue in Marseille, and he's telling it like it is.
G'day, Tom, Julie and all the Fozy. This is me again. Alice's awesome Aussie anecdote being brought to you from Marseille. It's an absolute pleasure being here, part of the Australian team, and it's been an absolutely fantastic experience. A few observations. It's an extremely challenging place to sail, even though we get some strong breezes. On the first day, there was gusts recorded to 26 knots, and then you see yesterday a race abandoned. Particularly the women's marathon and the women in the sailboard. Poor Israel, the girl, I felt so sorry for her was so far out in front and having to put the pin pulled on her. Beautiful coastline, great place to sail. Apparently the boat park is extremely challenging. It's very hot and very humid here and very dry and very dusty. And I've spoken to some competitors that say it's about the toughest onshore facilities they've ever dealt with.
Okay, that is an excerpt from a longer video that he did about the venue. It's from a couple days ago. But before he went to Marseille, remember, Julie, he was going around Europe, and he stopped in London, he stopped up in Norway, and we played that Norwegian video.
Yes, that was nice.
He also stopped in Weymouth.
Yes.
And guess who he saw there?
Yes.
Our super Fozy, Coach John Emmett. And John is standing by now. We'll get to him in a second. Smile, John. Come on, man. That's more like it. But Alistair stopped by in Weymouth and saw John, and then he submitted another video that I thought from last week, I thought you would all enjoy.
Yeah.
G'day, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. This is AAAA, Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote, being brought to you from the UK. You probably know that I'm in the UK. I've been catching up with a few friends and having a great time here, and we're just a few weeks out for the Olympics. I thought I'd have a bit of a chat to you today about some aspects of the Olympics that interest me. I would have enjoyed finding somebody to interview, but because that's what I like to do on AAAA. But today, couldn't really come up with anybody, so you just have to put up with me. But hang on a minute, I can hear somebody in the background. What's going on? Hey, hang on a minute. What's happening here? It's bloody John Emmett. Hello, John. What are you doing out here?
I'm just recording for Sailing Illustrated. I think I'll turn this off now.
I'm doing exactly the same thing. Why don't we turn yours off and we'll have a chat to camera.
Okay, there we go.
Shake my hand, mate. Fancy meeting you out here. So here we are.
I need to stand more up the hill so we're the same height.
Oh yeah, there you go. So you're out just having a walk and a talk.
Yeah, so it's roughly
Fancy
30
that.
days to the Olympic Games, and I think one of the big things is dealing with the pressure, sailing under pressure, and the medal race, and especially when we have this format for a lot of classes now. Love it, like it, detest it, where winner takes it all. It's really important how you do in that final race.
Yeah. Well, I was going to interview somebody, but couldn't find anybody. Now I've got you. So
Okay.
we'll have a bit of a chat about the Olympics. Bit of a surprise running into you here, John.
So I think I spent a lot of time walking and talking around here. I just think, you know, for the young sailors, this is something quite inspirational to get into the medal race and all the rest of it. But the Olympics has changed quite a lot, even in the last 3 Olympic cycles.
Yeah, it has. I think the biggest change, John, is the slate of classes and the way it's heading. You know, I mean, the traditionalists like to see the stars and the 470s and the fins and the older boats, and it's changed to be gender equal, younger, athletic, foiling, kiting, boards, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Completely different ball game.
I mean, progress is normally a good thing, but development's never smooth. I mean, I remember watching the Star medal race here very well, and I think the day or two after, Ian Percy actually went to feed the swans and sort of get away from it all at Abbotsbury Swanery, and I'd taken my goddaughter there, and I don't think he was expecting to meet any sailors. But yeah, progress moves on. We've now got 5 classes who are full foiling, and perhaps the biggest difference or the most noticeable thing is the 49er used to be regarded as incredibly fast. I mean, that's a medium speed boat now, and it was quite hard for us at the Worlds last year with the ILCAs when we raced against a lot of current, like we couldn't move. The foiling boats had no problem.
Well, let me tell you a story, John. Gray Morris is our Australia's representative in the IQ foil, and we had a sailing camp with the Australian sailing team on Elliott 5.9s, and we put him on the helm to sail some races against some of the other sailors. He's 20 years old. He's one of the best sailors in Australia because he's a member of the Australian sailing team. He didn't know what to do.
No.
He'd never held a tiller and never held a main sheet in his hand, and yet he's one of our best sailors. That tells you a bit about the change.
It's all time and distance, but obviously the faster things get, the more reactive it is. And you know, you talk to some of the IQ foil sailors. I mean, unfortunately, they just don't want to watch slow-moving boats. I mean, the thing for me is I think we're lucky to have all the aspects of the sport covered, but the Olympic slate is already going to be small. And you know, you saw the comment I did in the last Sailing Illustrated that some sailors obviously felt quite hard done by, that they qualified the country for Olympic Games, but they were not going to be sent.
Yeah. Personally, I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I love those old classes, but I also think it's fantastic that sailing now is younger, more athletic, gender equal. We've got just as many girls as boys, and it's a great showcase for the sport, I think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, there was some comments about the weight of sailors, and the thing I would say is actually the weight of sailors in Olympic classes is definitely increased. But when you look at the sailors are actually leaner and fitter. They may actually be heavier, but they're just carrying a lot less body fat, just like, you know, professional footballers or any other professional sports people. And what I would say as well is that the professional sailing is now something that comes after Olympics, and those fin-size sailors, they have a lot of opportunities on those big boats.
Yeah. Anyway, exciting times with the Olympics just around the corner. What are you predicting? What would we like to see? I think
one of the things is it's going to be the most open Olympic Games that I've ever seen. I think that actually happens most Olympic cycles. It becomes more and more open. There's more and more countries competitive in different classes, and especially being quite a short Olympic cycle, that makes it more difficult to predict. But I do think past performance is the best predictor of future performance. If you look back over the results of the last 6 months, especially at venues like Hyères and Marseille itself, that's your best indicator. Yeah.
Well, there's only one that matters to me, John. I was out for dinner last night with David Graham, the CEO of World Sailing, and he and I put a bet on for a bottle of Grange Hermitage, Penfolds Grange Hermitage, which is Australia's very best wine, $1,000 a bottle, £600. And the bet is my Matt Wern against your Mick.
So Mickey Beckett.
Mickey Beckett in the ILCA 7.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is I hope it's a really good competition. It's not decided by gear failure, unforced errors, other boats involved, and may the best man win.
Yeah, and looking forward to a really fantastic competition. I'll be there, and I'm looking forward to every single minute of it. John, a surprise running into you here. I've never actually been to Weymouth, and it's a pleasure to be here and see the Olympic venue from 2012, which was the scene of Australia's greatest triumph in the Olympics, actually, in sailing. And it's just fantastic to be here to see you, and fancy bumping into you here walking around the park.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm just wondering if I should do some more, or Tom's going to tell me off for a very short coaching corner.
You always come up with something. Great to see you, John.
Likewise.
And Tom, Julia, all the Fozy, cheers. We'll see you on the show.
See you soon.
See ya.
Okay, that was from a couple weeks ago, and I'm glad I saved it. I didn't have it, and then I got it just today. I knew it had been sent, but I'm glad I saved it because now we can see their prediction, and this could be. What am I on? Why do we get here to this? There's what we had in mind. Why are we? What's going on here, Julia? I'm seeing Croutonicism.
Yes.
Now we got John. Now we got the two of them. That's the shot I was looking for. I was doing some adjusting during that video with John, and now he's with us live. But that video is fun because they made Alistair did his prediction, their bet about the ILCA 7.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Matt Weirn is on the cusp of winning the gold. And Mickey Beckett, sadly, is, I think, down in 4th place. But we'll ask John about all that. Regardless, that was our latest AAA from Alistair Murray, who's there on the venue. He's probably tuning in and watching. Ted Ryman saying it was an excellent AAA with John. And if anybody, Julia, thinks that the two of them didn't plan to bump into each other on that beach, what kind of croutons do they think we are?
Yes,
Huh?
I know.
Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote.
I love all the stuff he does.
Everybody does, I think. And Marit Boumeester, we're celebrating today on show number 729, her clinching the ILCA 6 gold, and who better to tell us about all that than John Emmett, who is standing by in Weymouth at the Castle Cove Sailing Club, actually in his apartment near the Castle Cove Sailing Club. Blake Middleton agreeing it was really fun to see John and Alistair. John, how was that hooking up there in your hometown with Alistair Murray, Mr. President?
Well, the first thing I have to admit is actually he's already won his bet. Even before today, that's secured. And I was really pleased that they didn't have a medal race today in, if you like, poor conditions. If I do that again, it would be much better if I walked down a hill and then you would see me in the background. Because if I'd been any further the other side of the hill, I don't think I would have even made it on the screen. Alistair's so much taller than me.
Well, John, let's look at a couple slides. And the first one is, again, a shot NED of Marit Boumeester, and congratulations to her. What can you tell us about this? I mean, she's still got the medal race to do, but she's clinched it short of her not competing.
I mean, I think she's confirmed herself now as the GOAT of female sailing. I'll be very interested to see if she carries on after this. I mean, I've known Marit for a very long time. I worked with her as a training partner before 2008. And I think perhaps one of my biggest regrets is I wasn't able to convince the Dutch to send her to that 2008 games, where I'm pretty sure she would have finished top 10, if not better. But I do wonder if that experience was the reason that she's carried on and had such longevity in the sport. But on the flip side, it's one of these things you will never know. That little experience before 2012 could have been the difference between a gold and a silver medal. And we were actually in talks. I chatted to Marit a long time. I remember I was in Lugano looking over the snowy mountains, and we talked to her battery run out on a mobile phone. But I was giving Lily first refusal because she wanted to carry on. But in terms of my own coaching style, I always think I'm a very good coach for highly motivated athletes, and I'm not a good coach for sailors who lack motivation. I've never felt that's something you can give. I felt that has to come from the sailor themselves, and Marit never lacked for motivation.
Are there good coaches for unmotivated people?
Yes.
Can you point to somebody in the sport, for example?
Yeah, the Chinese, the average Chinese coach is very good at forcing sailors to go sailing who doesn't want to. Whereas I can't do that, so I'm a very bad Chinese coach. But you do get it at grassroots level. Sometimes, the idea is, I guess, you're a glorified babysitter. Whereas I found it with Tula and Lily and several athletes, I actually had to pull them back and to get them to take more rest days and to think, is this session really productive? And probably one of the most standout things about Marit, even when at certain points in her career, she was arguably the best in the world, she always wanted to improve, because every Olympic cycle, the standard just gets higher and higher and higher. And because the classes effectively haven't really changed, the ILCA, it's just an evolution, that bars get higher and higher. And when I wrote for Seahorse, it was a really hard job to call the medalists. And, some of it, like the Dutch 49er, sadly, you get injury and stuff getting in the way. But I mean, Marit was just a class act. And the fight now is for the bronze, because Anne-Marie has the silver in the bag as well. And I'm sure you'll get to this later, Tom, but I don't know how Emma in the IQ foil is feeling, because it's this situation in the ILCA 6 class. It'll probably be this situation in NACRA 17 class where consistency yields the result. I mean, I was trying to think of a good analogy. I mean, Formula One Grand Prix, you can win with several events to spare, but if you had a game of football, if the score was 4-1, you wouldn't decide it on the final goal to make it more exciting, like last goal wins. So I said before, I'm not a big fan of some of the formats. I think, the more races, the more the cream rises to the top, and it's the fairest way to choose a worthy champion. But when you actually know the person, it really cuts pretty close to home. But before we sort of go on to that, I do have to say I also do feel for the Italian girl who won the gold, and I hope that she's not having a hard time, because she just went out and raced. And
You mean who won
won
the gold in the IQ foil in the windsurf?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, with
we
Marit,
will
it's
get
great.
to that. Let me drag you back for a moment to the ILCA 6, what we used to call the laser radial. The runner-up also has had a hell of a run. Tell us about her.
Well, I mean, I met Anne-Marie in around
Anne-Marie Rindham.
2012 in Parma when.
Yeah.
But actually, before that, the first time I met Anne-Marie, she was coming up to.
Excuse me for interjecting, because I had some criticism. I'm not sure you were on yet with one of my lower thirds at the start of the show, but Anne-Marie Rindham, who is from Denmark.
I mean, the first time I met Anne-Marie, she came up to me in Weymouth to buy my book for her coach. And I was teasing the other day that I probably need to buy his book now, because he's got a very good track record. She's got the set now out of interest. She's got bronze, silver, and gold. Wow. But yeah, she sort of said to me when she was starting in Parma, it's a time for change up at the fleet. And, it's no surprise when these sailors get to the front and then they stay there. And she's had a couple of worlds where she's really dominated. Mar del Plata, and I want to say Houston, the American Worlds, where she's just been really dominant, and it's just about that peak. I think what Marit does very well is really home in on the venue, and it's so easy in sailing because it's such a dynamic sport to go off on tangents, and that's possibly the only time I would support a home trials is if you did the home trials in the Olympic venue, because being fast in the Olympic venue is so important. Everyone says, oh, it's never normally like this here. But if you spend 300 days in a venue, you're more likely to have seen everything than if you've only spent 30. And I know that's very much part of Marit's game plan, that she gets really super friendly with and comfortable with the key venues. And Anne-Marie, she had a soft tissue wrist injury. So I think if you read the body language, I think she's very happy to be there with the silver.
John, these are two tiny countries, and we talked about this in the last show about punching above your weight. Notice, by the way, I'm wearing green and yellow today.
Yes.
The national sporting colors of
Australia.
And but what about the Netherlands? What about Denmark? And what about Israel, for example? How do these countries do so well in the Olympic sailing?
Well, it's a culture thing. So if you look at Israel, I mean, they've dominated windsurfing for a long time, and that setup. And I know the team well. I worked for Israel before, and I think, especially considering all the stuff that's going on politically around the world now, I hope those athletes can really enjoy their experience and take the most of it. But the squad system is very important. So I think it was in 2020, the Dutch in the ILCA 6 had 4 boats in the top 10 in the world. So behind Marit, there's always that push. And there's, I think it pronounced Roos, there's good young Dutch sailors coming up through the fleet. And I mean, Alistair will tell you it's the same with the squad system with Australia and Denmark. The Scandinavian countries, they work together. So I really feel, perhaps it's saying it too strongly, but the budget thing is a red herring. It's not how much money you've got, it's what you do with it. And if you look, you've got Denmark and Norway in the medal race this time. Last time you had Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So yeah.
Okay, I've just given you a tan. Do you see?
I've got quite a good tan.
I tweaked your, well, you know, sometimes the cameras don't do you justice, but I tweaked your, if anybody's wondering what happened there. Oh, there's a good
That's
tan.
my natural body color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, John, tell us what happened at the doctor today, if you don't mind. And slide in here. Come in closer so that your head's about the same size as Julia's and mine. Or move your computer. Bloody hell.
I definitely can't show you, but today I had acupuncture and cupping.
Cupping.
So you can imagine what that's like with a hip injury. So I had to do quite a lot of shaving before I went, because the cups weren't sticking last time, because I'm a fairly hairy
Where do the
individual.
cups go? On your hip or on your thigh or
On my groin, on my inner groin.
inner groin?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I had a Bear Bugley show, I could probably show you, but it's all quite. I have great big. No, I'm not going to show you.
I think our ratings. I think our ratings would go way up.
So imagine you've been attacked by a giant octopus or squid or something. That's what my inner thigh looks like. So I've shaved to the point that I think if I wear long shorts, you can't see. But I guess I'll find out tomorrow.
Do you see what Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin is saying? Why all the alt med stuff? We're talking about acupuncture and cupping.
Because it works.
Does it work?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, one size doesn't fit everything. So if you've got an injury which is, if you like, aggravated, then you don't want to do things that aggravate it further. So we literally have some sort of scraping techniques and all these things. But basically, in very simple terms, you're promoting blood flow and healing to the area. And I'm very open-minded, and I would like to think I get the best of both Eastern and Western medicine. The problem is I do so many things. It's fairly hard to know what it is that's made the difference. But I'm not gonna stop any of them. But I think we should get back to these Olympic champions, not the injuries of a middle-aged man.
Well,
because
but most of our people on here are middle-aged and above. So you know this is very good information. Maybe we need Julia to try some cupping on you. Okay. Well, this is now becoming medical illustrated. But you know, I was going to ask you about Asian cuddling versus non-Asian cuddling, but we won't get into that. Julia, look at the look I'm getting from her. Let's move on, shall we, Julia? Mm-hmm. You know who that is, Julia?
Wernie.
Yeah. Okay. So you've lost your bet to Alistair because this guy is also on the cusp.
No. That was the CEO of World Sailing.
Oh, your bet. Alistair's. What bet was not with you? Oh, you're right. It was.
Yeah. I'm not. I've never bought a 600 pound bottle of wine in my life, and I don't think I'm ever going to.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I have had a bottle of that Penfold Grange Hermitage or whatever it's called. I've had a bottle because they were a sponsor of Jimmy Spithill when Jimmy and I were going around the U.S. giving America's Cup talks. I mean, when I was drinking, and it was that red wine is really.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah, they're quite good members of the Royal Prince Alfred too. So okay,
but let's go to Matt Wehren. Tell us about him and what he is also on the cusp. Well, I'll read the headline from the Australian Sailing's press release today. Australia's Matt Wehren will race for Olympic gold tomorrow. That was actually for today, but it got called off. And is assured of winning at least a silver medal in the men's dinghy class after the final two races of qualifying were abandoned on a light wind day in Marseille. And Wehren takes a 14-point lead over Cypriot Pavlos Kontidis, who's been a contender for a long time in that class and in other classes. Takes that lead into the medal race. The same lead fellow Aussie Tom Slingsby held over Kontidis going into the final day of London 2012 before Tom went on to win the gold. Matt Wehren, will be looking to become the first ever back-to-back Olympic champion in the laser in the ILCA 7 and to extend the amazing run of Australian gold medal success, which began with Slingsby in London, followed by Tommy Burton, Rio 2016, and Wehren again well, not again, but Weirin in 2020, and he's about to do it again. And here, John, is the current standings. Maybe I'll put that up full screen and see if people can see it. I can see it better. Matt, with the medal race yet to go, is on a net of 38 points. Remember, in the medal race, the points count double. So if you take a first, that will score 2 points. If you take a 10th, there's only 10 votes in that medal race, in the ILCA medal races and most of the medal races. If you take a 10th, you get 20 points. So if Matt scores a 10th, he'll get 20 points, which gives him 58 points. The second place, Pablos Contitas, could take a first. He'd score 2 points, and he'd finish ahead of Matt Weirin. Correct? Have I analyzed that properly, John?
Yeah, but I do think Matt Weirin is a lot more comfortable because Pavlos could potentially finish out of medals. I mean, we talked about Mickey Beckett earlier, and I think that black flag really hurt him a lot. I was just going to say, going back to earlier, I'm sure you really enjoyed your wine, but I would prefer 100 bottles of the usual stuff I drink. And I do think it's remiss. I should answer. So my top 2 tips for supplementation for that sort of is glucosamine and collagen, because as you get older, I think that's very important for the soft tissue health. But going back to Matt, he's absolutely amazing because everybody sees the people at the peak, but he went through, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, a really hard time because he ended up having long COVID. And in fact, I think he had basically the same inner ear imbalance that Bino had, which must be a top sailor thing. And then he came back, and he just pushed. He was so good at pushing himself. I think they didn't realise how, for a long time, that he was suffering from, the long COVID and the pneumonia type stuff and all the rest of it. And he had to take a lot of time out, and he's come back strong. And he's just one of the nicest and mentally toughest. I mean, these cliches get thrown around, but the reason they're true. One of the mentally toughest guys you're going to meet. And I'm not surprised that he's sitting where he is now. And I just hope we have a good final race because conditions tomorrow look fairly similar to today. So
conditions tomorrow look worse than today from the weather reporting I'm getting. I mean, it was bad today.
Is when you get up in the morning and look at the cloud cover and feel the relative humidity and all that. And this is the thing, to actually be there on the ground. But I was surprised they prioritised some of the classes over the medal races. I would have thought they wanted to get the medal races done. I mean, at one point, I thought the 470 was going to turn into attacking competition, but they did just about get the races away. And it must be a really, really tough job. That's interesting, actually, as well. It's the first ever female PRO for Olympic Games.
Did you finally get a schedule for tomorrow's racing?
No,
I didn't either. And
I switch on Discovery Plus and then yell at my TV, sat on the couch like most other people.
Well, I have yet to receive the schedule. I understand it's now been posted, but I have our various sources, our insiders in the venue. And when we went to air, I still didn't have the schedule for tomorrow because apparently they were wringing their hands or using a Ouija board or whatever because they're under enormous pressure, as you say, because time's running out. The week runs out. The broadcast schedule, the resources for a race committee.
When it's this hot, because you have a lot of air instability, a lot of thermal mixing up and down. So actually to get the wind fair over entire race course, it's interesting. I don't know what the commentary is that you have, but they keep on saying 6.5 knots. And I think, I'm not sure you can really be that accurate depending what point you're measuring it. But they're obviously trying to make it clear that it's comfortably above 5 knots. And for my living room so far, I'm not that convinced. But there we go.
Can you imagine, Julia and John and all the FOSI who are watching, can you imagine if first of all, the long distance race in the IQ foil, that got wiped out, right? Right, John, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I missed what the question was. Can I imagine it?
Okay, I can, that's because I did my usual. Okay, I didn't get to the question, but the IQ foil long distance race got wiped out, right? So the segue was to go into and ask, can you imagine if they'd scheduled this long distance offshore race that they were talking about for years?
Well, I know what Paul Goodison said about having male-female participation and viewing, but I probably shouldn't repeat that if they got really bored.
Julia, get your finger ready. No pun intended. I've got to be careful how we use your finger.
Yes.
Well, I hope a lot of comments here too. I hope we get back to a keelboat in LA. And I know you don't necessarily agree, John, but it's half. Let me just finish.
The ship sailed.
Yeah, I know, but still, we've had boats, classes, types, disciplines come and go in not only this sport but other sports. And I think to say the ship has sailed is not correct, because half our sport, give or take, maybe more, half our sport is in big center boarders and big heavy displacement center boarders and keelboats. And
if you were talking about getting something back in, I'd be far more passionate about the Paralympics.
What do you mean?
Well, that's a huge area of our sport that isn't represented at all.
Well, we ought to have that too. We had better leadership and management, we would have not lost Paralympics, as you well know. Mm-hmm. And that should be back in too. But I feel strongly we should have a keelboat, because it is such a huge part of our sport. You can do some other things like match racing, like even team racing, although that's a bit complicated. And for sure, you could then do some kind of a distance offshore race if it were some kind of a small boat with a top. But there are a lot of comments. And the Duffy boat racing, Fog Machine is saying Duffy boats. I doubt we're going to have Duffy boat racing, but we shall see. And John, I know you're also passionate about keeping the laser in. What do you think is the laser's future now that it's turned 50 years old?
Well, it's not necessarily the ILCA I'm passionate about, although I do really enjoy sailing it. It's just about accessibility. So in terms of accessibility, it's the only dinghy that really can be raced by any M&A. So if you're a kite surfer, you can come from a small island nation and you can put your equipment on a plane and go somewhere. If you're doing the IQ foil, you can put your equipment on a plane and you can go somewhere. But to be sending containers around the world with 49ers or NACRAs or 470s or whatever, it's just very hard for those M&As. And I think, if you're a really talented sailor, it shouldn't matter what country you're born. You should have an opportunity to go to Olympics. And I think it bridges the gap between what we see at the clubs up and down the country. Yeah. And what we see at the Olympics. So I think
we totally agree. Absolutely. And I hope the laser is in the Olympics for the foreseeable future. And I see a lot of comments now. Bill Allen, the former Olympian here and the Olympic gold medalist, in fact, here with Buddy Malgus sailing in the Soling back in what, Bill, 72, was it? 76? We need boats, he says, that are actually sailed in our yacht club environment. Hamish Ross, they bring on a keelboat. Blake Middleton, right on, John, in regards to Paralympic sailing. Clark Chapin saying, while sailors might well care about reflecting the breadth of our sport, the IOC cares primarily and only about TV eyeballs. They don't care about the breadth of our sport. I think that's true, Clark, or at least they don't much care about it, but that doesn't mean we should not be politicking, there we go, politicking yep. for what's best for our beloved sport. I'm going to give you the example of the next class here. I'll switch from the ILCA now. Unless you got anything else to say on that, we can go back to it. But speaking about a class that was in, or a discipline, I should say, that was in when it was the Tornado, then out, and now back in is the NACRA 17, because it, again, catamaran, multi-hull sailing is such a big part of our sport. So I for one, think the Star Etchells or J22 or something would be more representative of the sport as currently played rather than foiling. Well, David, I think foiling's here to stay and should stay as well. I don't think you're going to get rid of foiling. John Lamberts Van Buren. John, I thought you were flying to Canada today. Welcome. Today they had 48-degree shifts and 4 knots of breeze. Tomorrow forecast is worse. Yes, indeed. Not ideal for medal racing, indeed. Gordon Smith opines there's diddly squat. There's virtually no chance of a keelboat getting back into the Olympics. Read the rules. read the rules, the tea leaves. I'm not sure what he means there. The focus,
Runes.
the runes. What are the runes?
It's like when there's a command set in stone.
The runes?
Yeah.
Okay, that must be a British expression.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it is. But I just feel.
Don't
very
apologize for
passionately-
Smith.
I just feel very passionately to put effort where it's going to make a difference, and there's a lot of things that we can make a real difference, and I'm sure we'll come on to the IQ foil format in a minute. But I think OBS in a way is more powerful than the IOC.
Well, the OBS is the IOC. Come on, John. Olympic Broadcast Service is a creature of the IOC. So read the runes. The focus is on getting as many nations as possible involved in a keelboat class does not contribute to that. I'm sorry, Gordon. It could. It can be done, and I think you may see it done in LA. We shall see. A lot of other comments. Everybody wants to talk about Olympic classes. And let me illustrate the probability of a keelboat returning. He says propane torch to a snowball, Clark Chapin. Say, I disagree.
There you go. Graham Sweeney has said runes is an ancient Nordic script. There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Boy, you learned something on here, Julia.
Well, I actually thought that was true.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Well, you went to Stanford.
Well,
No wonder. I'm just a simple country boy who went to a good public school in Michigan.
mhm.
And I'm always feeling so insecure, John, when I'm around people like Julia and David James and Andy Rose. I'm surrounded by these people who went to Stanford.
Poor
mean,
thing.
The thing for me, I have worked with a number of very, very small M&As. And I think unless you've done that, it's quite hard to understand how hard it is for them
Yes.
just to run an ILCA campaign,
Yes.
just to get the
Hey, John.
logistics.
John, I understand how hard it is for a big country to run an ILCA campaign. What big country, sailing country, does not have a representative in the ILCA 7?
But sorry, the point I was making
What country?
is
What country?
the USA. But in terms, I mean, that's because they had a home trials rather than focusing on the air. But the thing is, for those small countries to run a keelboat program is so much harder than an ILCA program.
Okay, fair enough. Agreed. And Clark Chapin's wondering if I'm half Norwegian, why don't I know about runes? Well, my late great mother never told me about that.
Mm.
But I do know that my late great grandfather, her father, put me, I remember it distinctly, on his, I've told this story before,
Yeah.
on his knee when I was just,
Yes.
knee high to a grasshopper.
It's a lovely story.
And he said, Tom, never forget. 10,000 Swedes ran through the weeds, chased by one Norwegian. Okay, let's go to the, now that I've got John so amused. Look he's not even smiling. He's,
Well,
that's,
I've heard it a few times now.
I know. Well, you're on here regularly, and I got, you got to stick up for the Norwegians now that we're talking about runes, for God's sakes. And that, that's Minnesota's all Swedes. Michigan's Norwegian, Blake. Let's go take a look now at the discipline, the catamaran class that did disappear and then has come back. And now it's a full foiling upwind and down, and it's being dominated by the same two, the Italians, and it's co-ed, it's male-female. And Ruggero Tita and Cantarina,
Mm-hmm. Monty.
And they look at their score line, if you can see that. Now here, I'll help you a little bit with a bigger version of it. Cantarina Bonti. Thank you, Tom, for getting that right. Their score line is just astonishing. Their net is 27. And yes, they technically could score in the medal race last, a 10th, and get 20 points and go up to 47. And the Argentinians in second, Matteo Magdalani. You know Matteo, John?
No, I knew Santi quite well and his crew very well because we had an Argentina training partner for the 2020 cycle. So I went round and, got fed lots of matcha and lots of meat. I think when we had the Worlds in Argentina, I was still digesting meat 3 weeks after I got home. I don't know that particular pair, but I have to say the Italian pair. In fact, there's several very good Italian mackerel. So they just look like Blair and Took looked a few years
Yeah.
ago, just a little bit sharper. I mean, even when they tack, it sort of looks like a roll tack or whatever. They're just losing less on the corners, and they have just a tiny edge with the boat speed, but that's almost in all conditions, and they can go high when they want, they can go low when they want. And yeah, I mean, they deserve to win it.
Well, look at these scores. As I was saying, if for some reason they finished 10th, they'd end up with 20 points in the medal race, so they'd end up with 47. And then Matteo and Eugenia could take a first and add 2 points to their score and end up with 43. So it's possible, but highly unlikely, especially, John, given the performance of this team all week long. I mean, it's just
Well, the
astonishing
results were
watching them.
The results were too quick for me to see, but I don't think they've scored a 10th, have they, in the opening series?
Well, there it is.
So is it 6th, which is their worst? Yeah.
No, they threw out a UFD.
Yeah, no, but forgetting about that, they've never finished worse than 6th
Exactly.
over water.
1-1, 2-1, 1-1, 1, 6-5, the UFD 5-2. And just watching them sail the other day, I watched the entire race and it was the day with some breeze. And Gary Jobson was also, we were all, I mean, listening to Gary, we were astonished.
Mm-hmm.
They just are a click faster all the time, upwind and down. And when you're
an upwind higher, which it makes it very hard for the other boats to hold their lane. But I think also if you look 2, 3, and 4 are very close on points in real terms, and obviously only 2 out of those 3 will get a medal. So I think they're going to be much more worried about each other.
I think you're absolutely right. So I think that's a done deal for them, for Ruggiero and Katerina. Bravo Zulu to them. We'll see how it goes, assuming they get that medal race in tomorrow. You know, they might not do these medal races. They might decide they got to do the others. I don't know what's going on.
They shouldn't in the NACRA.
They should not do the medal race in the NACRA?
Not if it's like the conditions we had today.
Oh, absolutely.
No.
It's going to be
No.
worse than today, apparently.
Yeah.
From everything I'm hearing from okay, that could change overnight. Hopefully it will. But they've clinched silver or gold. Ruggiero, Tita, and Caterina Banti from Italia. Bravo Zulu to them. And it's just been an astonishing ride for them. They've won virtually everything they've competed in for what? At least the last 4 years, maybe longer, John.
So just the AC to come, yeah?
Yeah, indeed. Just the AC to come. Okay, now, John, tell us about this shocking development in the wind glider, or the windsurfer, rather, the IQ
I thought
foil.
I was going to get verbal diarrhea, and now I really don't quite know what to say. In fact, I haven't actually sent Emma a message because I really just don't feel that you can do justice with words. And I remember in Tokyo, I sat next to Emma. We're both wearing masks, trying to talk to each other, watching the epic 49er medal race. Literally, the Brits won by, I guess, half a meter. And you know, this isn't the first time it's happened to Emma, where she's arguably won the regatta with a day to spare, and then it's gone the way, you know, it's gone the way it has. And I actually pointed this out about my dislike of the format a long time ago, but when you actually know the person and the effort they've put in, it makes it absolutely heartbreaking. And I hope she will keep going. I mean, I was watching the race itself, and to me it looks like she came round the leeward mark in a really good, the leeward gate, left-hand mark looking upwind, came round with really good rounding, and there was more pressure on the right, and the boats behind her, the boards behind her, just came in at a slightly higher angle because they were in more pressure, and then the third boat was slightly more pressure, and so she couldn't tack.
She was. They're all on starboard, as you said. They rounded the port end, looking upwind, and she's pinned outside, and she couldn't
tack. And then
tack.
their first attack, and then they're first into the pressure, and it's literally the roll of the dice. That's just what the situation was when she got to that mark. You know, the Italian girl didn't peel off to the other mark, which was more downwind, in which case probably both boards would have tacked. And I really don't think she could have done anything else. I mean, if you had a debrief, I think she sailed for what the card she was given, the perfect race. And you know, if you look at the other formats where you have multiple medal races, you know, it's just the more races you have, the fairer it is. And the media stuff, I actually think people follow the personalities more than just wanting to watch that final race. And you know, these really short races.
100%.
And I see Sail GP as a different kettle of fish, and I don't want to undermine Sail GP in any way, because I think it's a fantastic part of our sport. I think we're so lucky to have huge boats like the Maxes, where we have match racing, we have people who go winging every Saturday. It's over 15 knots. We're so lucky to have all this stuff in sport. But Sail GP, it's not the same personal investment. People turn up, they race at the weekend, they turn up, they race at weekend. I mean, Emma's been doing this flat out for years and years and years. For it to be decided on one race just doesn't sit right. And everybody knows that was the situation going into the competition. But it doesn't make it feel better.
Let's go to the format, because I got Jonathan Shore and others. We're jumping ahead here and explaining what happened before we really explained the situation. They had a bunch of races. And we talked about this format, and we were wringing our hands over the format on Friday's show. And as you say, John, for a long time, we've talked about how croutonic this format is, because it was imposed on the sailors and the class. Here's the final results. The Italian, Marta Maggetti, I'm not sure, winning in the IQ foil in the female windsurfer. Sharon Cantor from Israel, second. And Emma Wilson, who we were touting on the show on Friday, not as a shoe-in, not as a sure thing, but she was going to have to, she'd already gotten herself through to the finals by finishing on top in the preliminary racing. And the difference...
The worst result she counted was a third.
Well, I'm going to come to that.
You know.
And worse than that, the Sail GP situation, as you go out there Sunday morning, everybody races 2 races, and then the top 3 boats go into the final race. So you're not sitting on the sidelines. Whereas in this format, which I'll take you through now, in this format, the top boat goes through to the final, which is what Emma did. And she's sitting around while the others are racing the quarterfinals and the semifinals. And the quarterfinals take, there's 10 boats in the opening series, the so-called opening series, and then the 4th through 10th go into the quarterfinals, and the first goes through to the final, the second and third goes through to the semifinals. 2 of the boats in the quarterfinals go through to the semis, those 2 blue heads, and then they have a semis between those 4, and 3 of those 4 go forward to the final, and the person who's matriculated from the opening series has been sitting on her duff through that. You know, it's terrible. And this is exactly what happened. And then the worst conceivable thing happened. The gal who had let me go back to her scoreline before we look at her scoreline.
Yeah, it's
Emma
amazing.
in 3rd place there. 1, 2, 1, 2. 17 was her discard in race 5. 1, 1, 1, 1. 3, a second discard. 1, 1, 3, 3. She's 38 points, and the second place boat had 49 net. I mean, but before that, in the totals, 38 to 89 to 105. Bloody hell, as you would say, John. And it's sad, it's astonishing. This format is absolutely and utterly croutonic, as Fog Machine is saying, and others. And here, okay, here's the AP story from a couple days ago. Kite surfing, the fastest sport at the Paris Olympics, hits the water in Marseille. Well, today, there was so little wind, and these kites are not good boats in light air. Fully 8 did not start because they couldn't get their kites up in the air and go racing today. And there were 8 DNSs, did not. So these formats and the kites and again, we're going back and forth between the IQ foil and the kites, but this is just, I'm going to go back, just utterly crutonic, this format, John. Last word to you.
Yeah, I didn't actually see the kites because normally they're pretty good at abandoning races in the kites because normally it's the other side of the coin and people complaining about so many.
Yeah, but guess what? They're up against the television schedule. They're up against the end of the week. They're already into reserve days and they're feeling enormous pressure. So guess what? The sailors and the sailing suffers. It's really, really sad.
I mean, I just hope there's been so much publicity about Emma, obviously in the UK, that I hope something good comes out of it.
Yeah, there was also a request for redress today, and Lance Burke, aka Fog Machine, is saying that the 8 who they requested redress and they were denied in case 87. No surprise, but the kites are victims of their own success. They're going to be at wing foils, if not next time, the time after. I do think so. That's the terrible situation that happened to Emma. And I feel sorry for her. I think everybody in the sport does. And it was a crutonic format foist upon her. Is that the word, Julia? Foist?
Mm-hmm.
Or foisted?
I would just say forced.
Forced.
Thank you.
See that? Even better.
But it must be really hard now to get people to commit to 4 years of their life knowing that's the format.
Yes.
Well, exactly. And they're going to change. They're going to fix the format. I mean, Hamish Ross is saying, I'm not fond of the medal race, but are all athletics down to a medal race and a final? Again, it's different if you have been running the 100 meters or the 200 meters race after race after race, year after year after year, and you got to go out and run it one more time because you qualified for it. That's different. And I just, there's a reason why our sport has a lot of races over a period of time because the conditions do change. They don't change in a 100-meter dash or the 200-meter dash because the track is pretty much the same. Okay, there might be a little bit different wind velocity. Foist, that's how they say forced in New Jersey, Graham Sweeney is. So I'm sorry about this kite surfing situation. We'll see how that goes. The U.S. has won 1 medal. We've got a shot at winning another medal. Daniela Moros, who's from here, from St. Francis Yacht Club. In fact, that our bronze medal, one of our 2 sailors in that boat is also in the bronze medal boat, is in the 49er, is also from St. Francis Yacht Club. But 8 of these boats took DNSs today, including the 5th place boat, Leonie Meyer. No, I beg your pardon. The 6th place boat.
Right.
The 2nd place boat, Eleanor Aldridge from the UK, from GBR, and then the 6th place boat from Suiza, from Switzerland, Elena Langweiler. She also was one of the 2 that didn't get to race today because she couldn't get her kite up, couldn't get it up. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, enough of all that. The sailing schedule goes forward. You can see that they're well behind the 8 ball. And we'll see if they have racing at all tomorrow. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they don't start races in conditions that are crutonic.
I think Lily's going down for the final day of racing, so she might do very well. And the way it's going at the moment, there might be an awful lot on.
Julia?
Jody Seal says, better format is the way we do it at banging the corners. And how does that work?
Well, it's exactly Steve Gruber saying, how's that work? A drinking contest at the end? Okay. Well, the Olympics will always be controversial, and it has been this time, and that's the latest. We don't know what the schedule is tomorrow. It must be out by now. It's 23:18 there in Marseille, so they must know what the schedule is because most people, particularly the athletes, presumably have turned in, have gone to bed. But we start with a celebration of Marit Boumeester, who becomes the GOAT, the greatest of all time, or the boat, the best of all time. And John's explained why she is so good, and bravo Zulu to her. John, can you stay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth mentioning, she's very recently been a mother.
Exactly. Sure.
People wouldn't know, but when they did the big crowd shot as she sailed past waving,
Yes.
her brother was there with his kid, and her kid Jissy was there in the background, and the whole family.
There
And I
are a
think that
bunch
was-
of photos. There are a bunch of photos of her running around with her kid after she got to shore, and the big celebration because she hasn't technically won it, but she's clinched it. So we think.
We think.
What do you think? Okay, what happened, Julia, on this day in history?
Oh, the 6th of August.
In 1497,
I remember it well.
speaking of not 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue,
Right. 97.
there's your first clue.
Oh.
I thought, apropos the Norwegians, the Scandinavians, the Swedes, all this talk, we had to do this. You know who got to North America after the Vikings? This Italian guy who sailed for the UK named John Cabot.
Ah.
And nobody remembers him because he didn't really document his trip very well. They put a statue up for him in eastern Newfoundland, John Cabot, and his name was not John Cabot. It was some Italian name, but he sailed from Bristol over to Newfoundland and back, landed, got to Brittany, he said, oops, I'm a little too far south here. I better go back up to find, navigation as it was in those days.
Mhm.
And that was the route of his 1497 voyage to Newfoundland. He lived from 1450 to 1499. And he did another voyage, and then they never found him. They don't know if he was lost at sea or if he checked in with his girlfriend down in Brittany, or we don't know what happened to him. But his 1497 voyage to the coast of North America under the commission of Henry VII, the then King of England, is the earliest known European exploration of the coastal North America since the Norse visits to Vinland in the 11th century, or so they do believe.
Yep.
To mark the celebration of the 500th anniversary in 1997 of Cabot's expedition, both the Canadian and British governments declared Cape Bonavista, which is the Italian for Buena Vista, for good view, Newfoundland, as representing Cabot's first landing site. However, alternative locations have also been proposed. Cabot, on this date in history, 1497, returned from North America. The Italian explorer returns to Bristol from North America, the first European to do so since the Vikings. David James was guessing Vasco da Gama. Nope. Was he related to John Henry Cabot Lodge? I don't think so. And now Jody Shields, Julie, is explaining the
Banging the corners.
Banging the corner cup. 10 boats in a final. Last two race boats drop out. That leaves 8 boats in the next race. The last 2 drop out, et cetera, until you end up with 2 boats in the finale. The beauty of this is that you don't have to win every race, but you just can't be in the last 2. So you keep racing. When it gets down to the final 2 boats, and it's all in for the win.
Aha.
Okay.
Okay. Glad to know that.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. And that gets us to an America's Cup segment. Gosh, we're an hour and 23 minutes. I thought, as usual, Julia, I thought this would be a short show.
I know better.
You know better. And it's nice to have John on here with us,
It is.
standing by as he is in Weymouth. I call him the Olympic expert, not just the Fozy and the super coach, but our Olympic expert.
Well, he is.
Which he is indeed, and we appreciate it very much, John. America's Cup, shall we talk for a moment about that? Because I've got one slide. America's Cup's gone quiet. None of the teams is issuing anything. I haven't been able to find anything from the organizing committee, ACE, America's Cup Events. I think that's what ACE stands for. But we do have, nonetheless, the book that is behind me here in Studio B, There Is No Second, Magnus the Magnificent. I can't say that. Magnus the Magnificent.
Yes.
Magnus Wheatley's book, the definitive account of the first race in 1851 for what would become the America's Cup. And Julia and John, for extra credit, what is engraved on the trophy? The New York Yacht Club brought it back and had it
100
engraved.
guinea?
What is engraved on the cup?
Isn't it?
I just read Mangus's book, so I definitely get minus points.
But it's something like the 100 guinea.
What did the Royal Yacht Squadron call the trophy?
I was.
Clark Chafin says this end up.
Yeah.
Friendly competition, Steve Groover's asking.
Hmm?
Okay, you all do your research, and I'll ask Ed Worley to put together a little challenge question for us for our next show. Ed's watching, because the engraving Old Mug 100-pound cup Baton Rouge is getting close. Let's not ruin it for everybody. What was it called? What was it engraved as? And it's now popularly known as the America's Cup, as you all know. The 200 Guinea Cup, David Chan. Return for deposit. A useless comment. Forecast tomorrow, Marseille, 4 to 7 knots. Hier, 10 to 12 knots. Yes, we've said many times, why don't they race where people in the country know is good racing and is standard venue for racing?
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason why for decades the Saman Olympic, the Olympic week, is held in Hier and not in Marseille. Useless comment, I know, sorry, Jean Lamberts Van Buren, not a useless comment. Hamish Ross, ding, 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 he has the answer.
Mm-hmm.
The 100-pound cup is what
Yeah.
it was called, and the Americans engraved on it something else, which we'll talk about down the road. But get this book and you'd know that.
The guinea.
Get the book. Magnus Wheatley's There Is No Second. A lot of you've read it. Julia is preparing her book report,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yep.
Oh, Hamish Ross is giving it away now.
Mm-hmm.
Claret, do not shake. Stingray's asking, hey, we finally have a comment here from Stingray today. The 3 Testicles Cup. We now have testicles twice in the show.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I should have said it's last two in for the win. Great racing and fast format. It rewards consistency. Good point. Okay, enough of all that. Let's wrap this one up. I've got 2 things in the last leg for you today. Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, this is not. And by the way, speaking of Commodores, I got a nice slide just as you saw it, Julie, before we went to air.
Yeah.
From the Vice Commodore,
Claire.
the esteemed Vice
Yeah.
Commodore Claire Harrington, because today is the start of the esteemed New York Yacht Club cruise, the annual cruise, which is, what's this, the
57, did you say?
60 something cruise. And there was a nice picture of the flag officers at, I think, the Stonington Yacht Club, but we'll get that in Friday's show as well. But let's get to the last leg here. And I thought we should review not the number of medals that have been won. Sailing medals have been won by the countries. We'll talk about that on Friday if the thing is wrapped by then. If not, we'll talk about it next Tuesday. The PRC leads, not with the total number of medals, but with the number of golds, which most people rank more highly than just the sheer number of medals. 22 for the PRC, 56 in total. The U.S. has the lead for a total count of 79, but only 21 gold. Australian, which is why I'm wearing the green and yellow today, they're also doing very well in sailing, as you know. 14 gold medals, and they're going to win some more, it looks like. At least one more in sailing. France on 13 gold, Great Britain on 12, the Republic of Korea, the ROK, on 11, Japan also on 11, Italia on 9, Germany on 8, and the Netherlands on 7 gold medals. So bravo Zulu to those countries. That's at the end of today. I managed to dig that up just before we went to air, courtesy of the IOC. Finally, here in the last leg, I have this slide, which was sent by, I guess I can say, it came from Henry Reese, our super Fozy there in the venue. And you know who that is in the middle? They're all paying attention to. There's security there. You know who that is, Julia?
No.
Or John, you know who that is? Any idea? In the middle. He's at every Olympics. In fact, I tell you that I hosted him in the 1984 games. He showed up. He was, he's my age, more or less, a couple years younger than I, but he showed up. He shows up at every Olympic. He showed up the America's Cup in Valencia, and I hosted him around our team base too. Hamish, you must know who that is. You hosted him around your team base at Alinghi. in Valencia 2007. Hamish Ross is on here. One last look. Got a bit of a belly now. He is, I'll give you another hint, he is president of one of the coolest yacht clubs in the world. Yacht Club de Monaco.
Monaco, oh yeah.
That is His Serene Highness, Prince Albert of Monaco. He is a big boating fan. He's more of a power boater than a sailor, but the YCM is a fabulous organization, and he is also, I believe, on the IOC. Hey, Alan Long, I see you, just to digress here, you got to go check the boat at Cleveland Yachting Club. They're not answering the phones. They're having a hell of a storm up there on Lake Erie, so I hope you and everyone else in your area, including Julie Ahrens, stay safe.
Yes.
And Ken Saban out on the east end of, or west end rather, of Lake Erie. His Serene Highness, Prince Albert, Royalty Illustrated, Stingray is saying, but I can do better than Henry Reese's photo, because another Fozy sent this photo and he said, you know, I'm a bit of a name dropper, but they're just all good sailing friends. And there they are.
Uh-huh.
Can you name all of them? Now that you know who's on the right, Julia, you can go first.
No.
Does that help? That's,
I can only name
Alistair.
two, I'm afraid.
you know, Alistair, and you know on the right is
Yes.
His Serene Highness,
Right.
HSH. That is Russell Coots on the left, the gold medalist in the Finn class 1984 in LA. And then one of the coolest Brits in the sport. You don't know Keith Musto, John?
Wow, I should do, but no, I didn't.
That's Keith
didn't recognize him.
Musto. And Alistair, as usual, is a magnet for these cool people.
Yes.
And he sent that photo just before we went to air. And they're having, and that was today during the light air. And he gathered these people up, and they're having, as one does at the Olympics. Russell
Yes.
Coots,
That's why he's probably not on the show at the moment.
probably, he said he was having a bit of a, shall we say, he was having a bit of an occasion tonight.
That's what he said to me, yeah. If
Who
he's on,
would
he'll
you-
be late.
Yes.
Clark Chapin asking, who would you rather be, a Serene Highness or a Royal Highness? Julia, you first.
Serene.
A Serene Highness. And I didn't look that up. I know that's been his title. But before that, his dad had the title, his late great father. John, would you rather be a Serene Highness or a Royal Highness?
I think it's like this thing about the Olympics. I would prefer it to be in the air, but it's just going to be in Marseille, so I won't think about it at all. So there's no chance of me being any sort of harness. So I haven't thought about it.
Well, your lovely wife is coming down, is she? You think?
Yeah, she's meant to be down for the final day, so hopefully she'll bring some wind with her. And yeah, I just hope they have fair racing. For me, it's much better to have no racing than unfair racing, and I do understand about the pressure. The strange thing for the media, I don't know why they don't show replays rather than for what I have. I just get a picture of the marina saying weather delays racing, and I'm thinking, well, why don't they show the stuff they've recorded previously and just have some replays?
Because that's expensive. That requires a replay editor. That requires a video playback editor. And what they've got is the live stream coming to the so-called unilaterals, which is, who is it? Is it ITV or BBC? Who's got your Olympic rights in the UK?
I think it's the BBC, but I watch Discovery Plus. But yeah, so just after a little while, it just switches to, for example, three-person basketball, and you have no idea what's going on. And it's saying across the top, like men's medal race, and you're like, well, that's going to really confuse some people.
Well, that's the same thing. To keep costs down for a niche sport like ours, the so-called unilaterals, and I've heard this from lots of different people, they've got some, and apparently your BBC announcer is really croutonic. From people I've heard who've been watching the BBC, they say that whoever that is not much of a sailor. But yes, David James is saying Peacock here in the U.S. does show replays of sailing, just like you can watch this show in replay. But if you're watching the live feed, I think, David, is what John's talking about. And I've talked with others. I had the long talk with Richard Gladwell, and they finally can watch live sailing. But you know, it's the time zones are a problem too. Okay,
But I just think people would switch off, Tom, if you're sat there holding for 2-3 minutes not knowing what's going to happen, you just go to another channel and don't come back.
Well, exactly. But the problem is it's the cost. I mean, follow the money. You've got, instead of just taking in, they're sitting in some, I don't know where the BBC is, but it must be in London somewhere, right? Or outside of London. So
I
there's,
think it's literally called BBC House.
is it in,
We're
so,
original, us Brits.
so there's somebody sitting in a sound booth, you know, in a closet, literally a closet, watching a couple monitors. Gary Jobson's doing the same thing in Connecticut, watching whatever OBS feeds them. And then they talk to those pictures, and then somebody, a producer wherever, probably in Connecticut, tells Gary, well, let's take a break now. And they take a break and they keep the cover slide up, or they switch to another sport. Exactly. I mean, it's just Croutonic commentary is universal, it seems, Hamish Ross is saying. Well, I for one, am enjoying Gary's comments and the work that he's doing here. It's not perfect, but he is doing, I think, considering that he's alone and having to watch something from on a TV monitor and try to explain it both to sailors and non-sailors and make it somewhat interesting.
Lily's probably doing that.
Well, Lily's up in the venues, right? John, what's Lily doing?
Yeah, I can't keep up with her. I think she's on sport number 22. So today, when the sailing was postponed, I switched over and I watched the women's high dive, and she was actually there watching the same thing at the same time and did a nice little interview with Tom Daly. But yeah, she's just seeing lots and lots of sports, trying to get around as many as possible.
When she does that interview with Tom Daly, for example, the famously good British diver, is this his 4th or 5th Olympics? He just won a silver this time. He won a gold last time. But is she talking to him in English? Yeah,
you can see it on her Facebook page. She's literally using the little DJI mics in her iPhone. So yeah.
Oh, that's
but
nice.
is she feeding? Is she part of OBS, or is she feeding CNTV or somebody in China?
No, she's independent. So she has done some live streaming for the English speaking Chinese channel, and then she's doing her own stuff. So yeah, it looks like she literally caught up with Tom, between the dives. But yeah, she's doing a lot. I just get a very tired voice message at the end of the day. I think she's doing over 2,000 steps a day just going around.
I bet you it's good because she started out doing a good job and has come.
I discovered the English speaking Chinese channel sort of by accident, and I've been watching it. I think their speakers are very good and very much.
Have you seen Lily?
No.
Have you seen Sailing?
No.
That's the other question, John, and not to belabor this, but have you seen Sailing on the BBC in your evening production or your primetime production?
I've watched House of Dragon and Discovery Plus.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, I've been watching every evening the primetime coverage, which is a little hard. If you've watched it during the day, it's here in the States because of the time zones. We can see live, for example, the 100-meter dash. They hold for the night here. Yeah. So it's like at 10 o'clock or something late in Paris, and we see it live over here. 9 hours earlier our time, or 9 hours later rather. Right. But then on the weekends, we see a lot of live stuff during the day that gets repeated at night in the prime time. And I guess the Olympics, it's all about money. It's all about television. So they.
Yeah, I've been watching Olympics at night.
You have.
Yeah.
Not Perry Mason reruns.
Oh no, not this time.
Graham Sweeney says the BBC commentator on the Nacre race stated that the catamarans would use both hulls to stabilize them in the chop. Okay, nobody's perfect, least of all me, and that gets us to John. We got one joke for you.
So what was Graham's comment? I didn't quite read that about the
BBC commentator on the Nacre race stated that the catamarans would use both hulls to stabilize them in the chop. John made a face there. Make that face again.
It's spontaneous. I don't think it's been that windy.
Okay, well, we will cover the Olympics again on Friday, and hopefully they have some wind. It doesn't look good for tomorrow. It does look better, however, on Thursday and Friday, according to weather forecasts I've looked at and heard about, which gets us to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And as I said, we're staying all Olympics today, with the exception of Magnus's book.
Mhm.
We're staying all Olympics, and this guy we celebrated on Friday's show. This is the
Yes.
guy who just walked up, no goggles, no sights, no ear. I guess he's got earbuds in, but this guy walked up, put his hand in his pocket like he was some secret agent man. And the Turkish pistol shooter was the comment from Matt Suzuki. Walked up, hand in pocket, blam, 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 silver medal, no special heads-up display, Google glasses, and other contraptions that all the others use.
Mhm.
And that, again, from Matt Suzuki, who's over in France. He's an American who used to be here in the Bay Area, in fact. And today, Matt sent this one saying, here's what he's going to look like. He said, one hears he's coming back to LA in 2028.
No, lovely. Very LA.
Making a little fun of us here in the States. We like to make fun of ourselves as well as anybody else. His female teammate, yeah, I saw that, Gordon Smith, was actually dressed rather similarly. The Clint Eastwood of Turkey, Clay Embley is saying, make my day.
Yeah.
Alistair's just checking in. He's out probably at a nice long boozy dinner. Probably some great wine there in France. I will catch the show and replay. Alistair, thanks for your contributions.
Mhm.
This is old school shooting style without all the equipment. Okay. There it is. 2028 Olympics. Then they should run it on the beach too while they're at it.
Yeah.
I don't know, with some of the crime and shootings that are going on. Maybe that's not so funny to some of you. But
No.
okay, enough of all this. Ted Ryman sent that in, no surprise. And finally, the non-sailing CEO has got to go, right, John? Right, Julia?
Right.
I think our focus should just be on the Olympics at the moment. It's not going to change in the next week.
One can only hope. The sooner the better. If I don't put that in, the people are waiting for testicles to now drink. Have a drink. Ding, ding, ding. Rick Banner was saying. My thoughts are sailing is a minority sport in the Olympics and will struggle to stay as an Olympic sport in the next few cycles. It is hardly ever at the main venue and doesn't get anywhere near enough coverage on main channels until the medal race. Peter D. Taylor is saying Alan will be gone. He knows what I know. Peter Taylor in New York, and he has good information as well. Thank goodness. And that'll help we may win 2 medals in this country, which is an improvement over the last time, and even an improvement over 2016 if we win 2 medals. But come on, medal race and Matt wearing, that's what we're told. We already talked about it, Alistair. That's why I'm wearing your sporting color, your national sporting colors,
Mhm.
in your honor, and the Australians and Bravo Zulu canceling the non-sailing CEO. There's another Australian, Andrew, a.k.a. Dolly Davola. Let's not make it a circus just to try and stay. Yeah, just we're trying to stay in the Olympics, but we've made it into a bit of a circus. And I think cooler heads will prevail. I hope we bring it back now from this circus that it's become, Andrew. Good on you, mate. Thanks. Yep, Alistair, thank you for your contributions. Thanks to all of you for showing up. Thanks especially to John. Sir, a final word to you.
Yeah, I just think that we've got a few more days of racing, and I hope it's good, fair, fun racing, and we can make the best of our wonderful sport.
Indeed. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, I agree. With John.
With John. Well, we're at the finish line. John, thank you for coming on live via Skype from Weymouth. And I don't know what we're going to do on Friday. I'm hoping that Alistair was going to come on. I haven't asked him. He's on here now, but he may have a long boozy dinner Friday night and not want to interrupt that with a party. And it might involve a lot more people than just Alistair. But we are to the finish line. And we like to say like, follow, and share, right, Julia?
Absolutely. Especially now, people all over the world are interested.
Yeah, indeed. And comments are welcome, even in replay. We leave them open, as everybody on here probably knows. We want to thank, again, those of you who contribute via Patreon to become a supporter. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Patrons of Sailing Illustrated are prized possessions. How was that for alliteration, Julia?
Very good.
Lake Middleton, thank you, Julia, Tom, John, Alistair, and the Fozy scattered around planet Earth. Thank you, Don Lunabos. Thank you, Thierry de Jong. Thank you to everybody. Yeah, Ted Ryman saying, cool to have John and Alistair again. Nice show. Thanks, Tom and Julia. Well, thanks to all of you. Thanks also to those who gave us video, audio, and images for today's show. It was a long list. And with that, we will say so long until Friday. We hope you have a great rest of your week. We hope there's some breeze in Marseille.
Hold your breath.
And we'll see you on Friday. Same time, same channels, both YouTube and Facebook. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.